You know what? And you heard it here first. Scorpios out there are really misunderstood. There's not that many Scorpio killers. But when I researched this woman, first of all, I think she looks like Linda Cardellini, but then, you know, I researched like her crime, her trial, the last meal to see, you know, if there's substance. And the last thing I look into is the background, so date of birth, for example. And when I looked into her date of birth, I was like, wait, is this like on the cusp? Is she? No. She's like a full Scorpio. This is why I connected with her like this. Obviously, she's a murderer, you know, I do not condone this behavior. Hi, Maja, you're in the presence of greatness. Like, why do you not address the people? You look lost, but I think we just found you. This is a last meals video. There will definitely be a last meal, that's why I cleared this side of the display. It's just gonna come in due time once we actually eat her last meal, because I realized it came with a lot of practice. I've done like probably over 15 of these by now. You can watch them all, there's a whole ass playlist. What I realized is if I start with a meal, then it's just me, like you're looking at my mouth chewing things, and I don't want to put myself through that in general, so I don't want to put like the audience through that. So we'll eat the last meal at the moment in this story that Karla Faye Tucker was supposed to be eating her last meal. That's who we are talking about today. Wow, this is a roller coaster already. So before we dive into Karla Faye Tucker's life, the Scorpio life, her last meal, or what is last meal series all about? It's me, your homegirl. I sit on my fat ass and I eat somebody's last meal. How did that somebody get to eat their last meal? Well, first of all, they're dead. That was a very easy question. Why are they dead though? Well, they have done a bad deed which landed them on the death row. They got a death penalty. Sometimes I cheat and, you know, they just die in prison, and what I eat is actually what they like ate for breakfast. Today, no, she was sent to death penalty. And this is such an interesting case. So, let's dive in. Chop, chop, fuck yeah, chop, chop. In a weird mood. Karla Faye Tucker, my fellow Scorpio. She was born on November the 18th, 1959. Stop with that, because soon you're all gonna lose compassion for her as well. Real soon, like real soon. But her childhood was fucked up. Yeah, is that the correct terminology? To begin with, her parents' marriage was unstable as hell, so the two of them were kind of having an on and off relationship, and it was constantly due to one or the other's infidelity. So one or the other would cheat on each other, but then they'd forgive one another, they'd like move in together. So Carla, who had two sisters, kind of was feeling the consequences of this, because it's not just like, oh, they would, you know, come back together, forgive each other. It was very public that the two of them would break up, that there was this dramatic breakup scene where they would shout and scream at each other that, you know, one of them was cheating on the other. Then they would come back and seem like, oh no, everything is completely fine. And then they go to their daughters and be like, this is it, like we are coming back together, so sorry about all of that, making them completely believe this story, making them believe like, no, it's gonna be all fine from now on. So it was like a constant mindfuck in her childhood. But finally, one day, they decided to get divorced. Also, one weird thing with this family, they did the Kardashian thing, except that their last name didn't start with a K, but all of the daughters' names start with a K, so it's Carla, Kathy, and Carrie, or Carrie, I suppose, but with a K, so it's spelled really weird. I just thought that was amusing, just because, I mean, I guess you wanted them all to be KT. I guess you wanted them all to have the initials KT for some reasons, but yeah, we go back to the story now. Where were we at? The divorce. During the divorce, the kids actually went to live with their dad, because he got a custody of them and he managed to prove that he's the more stable out of the two. But during these divorce proceedings, Carla's mom actually revealed to Carla that she is the product of an extramarital affair, so that she's not her father's daughter. And Carla kind of immediately felt like, suddenly, you know, everything that she has been seeing, like how her dad was treating her before, how he's treating her now, that he also knows, and he just doesn't see her as one of the other two, Kathy and Carrie. You cannot spell Carrie with a K, it just doesn't sound right. Cool. Yeah, now that you had a lesson on how not to spell names. Because you are clearly American, bitch. So these family dynamics during the divorce really made Carla feel like she doesn't belong, which is actually really common if you remember certain stories of like serial killers, or just like the one I was speaking about last week. I think it was on Gone Bad, or it was on the podcast, where either you realize you were not, like you were adopted, or you realize you have been living in a lie your whole life. So like your mother is your sister, and then like you realize your life was a complete lie, and you just don't feel that sense of belonging that you felt until that moment. So Carla instead looked for a family, or the concept of a family, out on the streets, and she started using drugs since the age of 10. And not just that, but she started off with weed, as plenty of people do. I mean, not that early probably. By the age of 10 she started smoking weed, and she realized that's not enough for her. She doesn't feel enough of a fix. So she started shooting up heroin by the age of 11. And who is she to find this family out on the streets with? Well, this was early 70s. Biker gangs were really popular, and those were the cool guys, you know. It was like the cool boys. Ooh, you're so cool. I'm an 11-year-old girl who, you know, doesn't want to spend time with her family no more because my life has been a lie. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna go on the streets and I'm gonna hook up with a biker boy. Woke up in a really weird mood today. I'm so sorry. This is usually, you know, not the level of professionalism that I show. Really? Really? Really though. Really, yeah. Yeah. I'm a lot more professional. Can't say it with a straight face though. So by the age of 12, she is now fully just hanging out with this biker gang. You know, she's with them on the streets, she's in each other's houses. So on one such day, she's 12 years old, and she goes up to this house looking for this gang member's sister, but she didn't end up being there. So, yet again, she's only 12. She goes in, and this guy just, you know, brings her in to chill out, to obviously get high. And that is when she lost her virginity. And since then, she connected drugs and sex on the high as the ultimate experience. So at the age of 14, she completely laid her day school. She's like, nah, what's the point? Yeah, like, why not? And she joins her mother, though. This is the weirdest part. She joins her mother, and they start touring and, well, working as sex workers, or what they call prostitutes at the time, while touring with different music bands, including the Eagles, which was like, wasn't Eagles like the shit? No. At a certain point, like even today, you hear people listening to Eagles. There's two other bands, I'll put them on the screen, I have no idea who these are, didn't bother looking up. Basically, they're touring with the bands and they're doing sex work, mother and daughter. Not much is known from this part, except that she had a really brief marriage when she was 16 to the guy that was called Stephen Griffin. He was not a Griffin, Maja. This is not Family Guy. He was called Stephen Griffith. Griffith. Just stop it all. Just stop it all. Just shut the world down today. And by her early 20s, she meets, through this biker gang that she's still hanging out with, a woman named Shawn Dean and her husband, Jerry Lean Dean. And this couple, while they're hanging out, in 1981, they decide, you know, why not play the matchmakers? Like, let's introduce her to one of our mates. His name is Danny Garrett. So Carla and Danny meet up, you know, they have like that sex on the high, they realize they're compatible with each other, and they marry when Carla was only 21 years old. And Danny was 35 at the time. No issues, there's not gonna be any single issue. This is gonna be completely stable. I don't know why I started this video. Carla's there living her happily ever after now, and they're obviously partying up. Like every weekend they go to different bikers' house. And on one of these parties, remember Shawn? She goes and approaches Carla, and Carla just looks at her. At this point, the two of them are best friends, what you would consider in a normal life situation. And Shawn looks beaten up again, like her lip is swollen, like it looks like she has a bruise. And Carla is pissed because by now Carla knows Sean and Geraldine have broken up about a week ago and they're gonna go for divorce. But she is, you know, she's getting high on drugs and she's being pissed and she's like, listen, I'm gonna go after this party, I'm gonna go and seek revenge on your behalf. In her sober mind, revenge just referred to getting even, so confronting him, standing toe-to-toe, fist-to-fist. And of course you can see how that will escalate when somebody's high as a kite, like off multiple drugs. But you also need to understand, Carla didn't just dislike this guy because of how he was treating her best friend. He was kind of antsy and eggy towards her as well. So first of all, one time he actually brought his motorbike inside Carla's house, and although obviously these people lived in like hoarders in a complete mess, he kind of left this motorbike to like leak against her TV and against her furniture, so of course she'd be pissed and she asked both of them to leave. Even though Sean was with him, she was just like, no, I'm not gonna tolerate this, leave and get this motorbike off my property. And the two of them left, but that kind of left her and Geraldine exchanging like some harsh words, and immediately introduced this strenuous relationship between her and her best friend's partner. Because they're all still hanging out with each other, every single time it would be that really contentious relationship where both Carla and Geraldine would be in a room and they would just like snap at one another. Or when just Sean would come, like she'd be like, yeah, he kind of, you know, doesn't want me to hang out with you any longer. He's giving me shit every time I come here because he's thinking like you are the one, you know, causing these arguments in between us and this contentious relationship. But also, I kind of gotta admit to you, Sean says to Carla, Geraldine, you know how I have that picture of you with like your mother from your touring days? Yeah, he kind of looked at that picture one day and took a knife and just like stabbed at it multiple times. So Carla had that in the back of her mind during this evening as well, as she's getting high and just thinking of all the reasons why she hates Geraldine. On June the 13th, 1983, Carla, who is 23 at this point, and her husband Danny are just chilling in a car. They are high. There's like 2 lines of everything that they had in their systems, including weed, heroin, rum, and tequila. Danny came up with a brilliant idea. He's just sitting there like sliding his arm across Carla, being like, I got an idea. Why don't we go and steal that son of a bitch's Geraldine's motorbike? Like, you know, what's a biker without his bike? A logical idea. And Carla is like, yeah, that will be, you know, that eye for an eye, payback time. But of course, because they are high, they do not think this plan through whatsoever. During the party that night, her husband Danny actually confessed to another person who was at this party, like, yeah, we're gonna go like rough him up a bit, just intimidate him, maybe like rob him of some money. While Carla went into her best friend Sean's bag to take their house key. Later that evening, Carla uses that key to get into Geraldine's house. However, immediately the door creaked and Geraldine was still sort of in the state of being awake, and he said, who's out there? Which triggers Danny to just lose his mind, and because he was already carrying a hammer with him, he lounges forwards with a hammer and starts hitting Danny over the head over and over again. Where is Carla, you might ask? Is she still standing in the door? Is she calling for help? No. Carla heads towards the living room and looks for something that she could use as a weapon. And for some reason, unfortunately for them, this couple had a pickaxe inside the living room. So she takes this pickaxe and goes to help her husband. So Danny kind of stops to pause from his frenzy and see what Carla is going to do. And Carla just keeps at it. She just keeps striking Geraldine over the head. So Danny is super excited. He's like, okay, cool, we have it covered now. This is when her husband goes back to his car to like basically do what they came there for, to steal this motorbike of Geraldine's. But when he comes back, he returns to a completely different scene. Because you see, Geraldine wasn't the only person in that flat. there was a different woman, not her friend Sean, but a woman called Deborah Thornton, who argued with her husband that evening. As she knew Geraldine, he was divorced, if you remember at this point, and she kind of came to be comforted that evening, that's what I read in different articles, and was staying over and sleeping over in his bed. So Carla saw her hiding beneath his covers while basically they were both in this frenzy, killing Geraldine. So, of course, she doesn't calm down there. She immediately goes and strikes this woman with this pickaxe. And once Danny comes back into the room, he's super excited now. It's the height of the crime, it's the hype of the drugs. He even tries to support his woman now and goes and throws the blanket over Deborah. Looks at Carla and tells her, like a piñata, right? To which Carla, of course, is ecstatic as hell as well, and she just continues killing this woman with a pickaxe. And the final blow, and where they left this pickaxe, was in Deborah's heart. What Carla will tell everybody who would listen later, I mean, to a certain point, then she got off the drugs and realized that's not the best defense. But what she told everybody was that she reached multiple orgasms, like an orgasm per each blow with a pickaxe. Which I'm like, girl, if you really believe that at a certain point, good for you. It's like Carla and the reality of female orgasms in this story are not really on the same page. They're not even in the same universe, but sure, whatever you had to tell yourself to explain this gruesomeness, I guess. In the next few days, the landlord discovers the bodies and the police immediately starts connecting. It literally took them no time because they knew he was a biker, so they just went to his biker gang and just asked around, and people sung. Everybody from Shaw to Carla's sisters to Danny's brother. And also that guy that they wanted to include onto this burglary, his name was Jamie LeBrand, and he said he was just waiting for a really long time outside. He was supposed to be just like a getaway driver, so he was waiting in this car for a really long time, and then they came out all bloodied up. So he's like, yeah, I'll testify, I'll do anything, just don't connect me to this crime, please. Like, this was just supposed to be a robbery. So on July the 20th, they finally have enough witness statements, they finally have enough to arrest both of them. And they go and separately arrest Danny after work and then Carla as well. During her trial, of course, with every single female case, there is going to be some controversy. Something that you do not see when it comes to male cases in terms of death penalty, at least not as much. So first, of course, they go to have a trial to find her guilty or not guilty, and then there is like a second one to see what her sentence is going to be and, you know, is she going to get a death penalty. So first trial, there's a female judge presiding. Carla has 8 women and 4 men on the jury, so she thinks, you know, okay, we might be able to sway them. But literally everybody who was supposed to be like in on it, or people from the biker gang, testified against her, and they were like, no, this was premeditated. To a certain degree. I mean, she did speak ill of him constantly. She might have even said multiple times that she wouldn't mind offing him. So maybe it did start as a burglary, but there were motives there for her to proceed into a kill. The jury that Carla thought, like, you know, because there's 8 females there, like she can build rapport with them. No, the jury took like 70 minutes. They literally went out, probably went to the toilet, came back, they're like, guilty. This second trial, her defense went for 2 different things, one a bit better than the other. So they included a psychiatrist who basically said, okay, actually sleep deprivation is real. Carla did not sleep for 3 days before the kills. She was obviously high on every single drug possible, so that enhanced her experience and that could cause a person to snap while they're at somebody's house committing anything, really. Like, she would have just been triggered by seeing his face or hearing his voice. But also she said, you know, that thing about orgasms, yeah, please just ignore that. Like, Karla clearly didn't know what she was saying. She was just, you know, trying to describe the situation, but this is kind of impossible. And also, like, she didn't, you know, she just didn't orgasm with every blow of the eggs, because there was 20 plus blows to the head, and well, yeah, it happened in a couple of minutes, so just please ignore that. I love how every single person had to like professionally address the fact that came out of this woman's mouth during these crimes. Like, it just is not how it works. Females, you get me, you get me. The second thing that happened, though, that is a big no-no, and that's that Karla took a stand. And if you are guilty and pleading guilty, you just don't take a stand in your trial. You're gonna sleep up and say something dumb. So what did Karla say? Well, she said like she had a huge gap in her memory and she doesn't actually remember. Like, she doesn't remember holes in the body. She doesn't remember blood. It's like she remembers opening that door and then just something completely shut from her, and she just remembers her life afterwards. So this time it was already April 1984, and the jury only took 3 hours, and they decided she deserves the death penalty by a lethal injection. Garrett was also sentenced to die, but after 11 years, in 1993, he died of liver disease while awaiting his crime sentence. And not just that, but people tried striking a deal with Karla to testify against him for them to drop her involvement in Deborah's death, although she was more involved in Deborah's death, so I don't really get how that worked. And she did, so they dropped the charges for that. However, they never dropped the death penalty. Not for the lack of trying, because there's plenty of people that I have covered on this channel that do want to die as soon as possible. They're like, no, let's not waste the taxpayers' money like that guy last week. Let's just move on with this, let's get it over with, you know, I don't want to spend my time on this death row. Karla, as a change, was like, no, let's use any appeal possible, because my death penalty should be abolished, because what is it? What is it? It is easy. It is the most common one. She was a newborn Christian. She found Christianity in prison. There is this creepy interview I'm gonna play parts of right now, because it is the most eerie thing that you might see. I was like, okay, Linda Cardellini face, what's coming out of her mouth is just, I was like, is this a mockery?
Carla, one of the areas you really had to deal with is forgiveness. You've had to extend it and you've had to receive it. But there's a great freedom that comes with that. So many of us who aren't behind these bars and walls and plexiglass and wire are trapped in unforgiveness. What's God taught you about forgiveness? That, as you said, there's a freedom in it. When I was forgiven and I experienced that forgiveness, it freed me up inside to soar. You know, it freed me up inside to go higher and to go deeper with the Lord. But when we're holding unforgiveness, we're blocking communication and intimacy with the Lord in our own lives, and bitterness can start to take root in us. Well, when God forgave me, I think he used that forgiveness and that love to reach down inside of me and take every root of evil, every root of horror that was in me, and literally pull it up and get rid of it and go back in me and fill up with his love. You've had a date set now, as everyone knows, but you know, that really, I'm sure this hangs over your head the whole time after a sentence like this has been given, but it really comes home once there's a number put on it like that. Are you afraid of dying? No, I'm not. I'm not afraid of dying. I mean, I know where I'm going. I know that Jesus has already gone to prepare a place for me. I know that if I have to go February 3rd, that he's going to come and he's going to escort me personally. I believe that. So I have no fear of that. I don't worry about myself, but I certainly am concerned for those who are going to be left behind, for my family and friends, my husband. You know, we don't know what God's plan
I'm sorry, but like she's referring to is she's getting Airbnb in hell, guys. She knows God is just making the bed up for her. Putting some tea and coffee as complimentary condiments inside and just putting some poison inside all of them. She's referring to all of this as if it's Airbnb. Girl. Girl.
Well, there are just a lot of us praying for you. And I think about everything that's been in the media lately. You know, I had to laugh the other day because we've looked at the gender issue, we've looked at politics, we've looked at the death penalty, we've looked at just so much issues. And the other day I turned on a program and they were talking about advocacy journalism generated by. I think I saw that one. And I just shook my head because I thought, you know, we don't get it. It's not about any of those things. And in truth, it's not even about you.
No, it's not.
It's all about Him.
It is about God. It's about redemption. It's about the blood of Jesus and what the power of God to change a life. It is about what Jesus did on the cross.
She gave plenty of interviews in prison. As you can see on this one, her hair is perfectly combed. She even seems like she has a bit of a lipstick. Her eyebrows are perfectly trimmed. I'm like, girl, like, do you have a hair salon in prison? Why do you look like you're coming from like a cosmetic salon for this interview? This is a thing that she said. I couldn't find a clip of it, but she said this at another interview. Certainly you can't say that brutally murdering two people is good. It's not. But afterwards, what came from that in me was good. To really nail it into people's heads that she is this newborn Christian, she went even a step further. She married this person that she met through prison ministry group. I don't know if they ever met in person because they married by proxy, which is the first time I have heard by proxy used next to marriage, so I had to Google it because I was like, how does that work? Because none of them were present, but both of them like signed papers. Because Carla was on the death row, so she couldn't just like go out and marry like other people in general population apparently could. So she married a reverend to prove that she was Christian. Please stop doubting Carla. Like, she's probably haunting us all from hell right now. Now let's briefly talk about why is it always so controversial and why is it always females when it comes to the death penalty. Because Carla was on the death row for, if I remember right, 15 years, during which time her lawyers never stopped appealing, and the support against the death penalty, and in such way the support for Carla to not receive the death penalty, was just constant. This professor of law at the University of Houston, David Doe, actually put it perfectly, and he said, of the people who have been executed since 1982, half have found religion, half are either black or Hispanic, and most of them are men. But most of them don't have the advantage of being physically attractive or articulate as she is, which hurts their case. Tucker's supporters made an exception for her because they saw her as a human being. The question we should be asking ourselves is why so many people saw Tucker's humanity but refused to see it in so many others. Her lawyers even advised her to write like the one last plea to the president himself, President Bush at the time. This is just one bit of it, but it's not the strongest plea you're ever gonna read. I get what she was trying to do, but it just doesn't sit right. It's just not like the plea for your life. Like, you're fighting for it. I don't see it. Justice and law demand my life for the two innocent lives I brutally murdered that night. If my execution is the only thing, the final act that can fulfill the demand for restitution and justice, then I accept that. You see what I mean? You can't end a letter like this if you're like, don't want to be dead because he's gonna be tough on crime because he's a president and he's gonna be like, no, you killed two people, I kill you. So finally one last appeal has been denied, and actually the parole board member was interviewed and he said there were 16 people from all different like races, genders on that parole board, and it was 16 against 0. Like literally not a single person have even waived in their mind about overruling this death penalty and about not sending her to die. They were like, no, it was like 16 against 0. This is pretty as clear cut as this will ever get. So 15 years after she was sent to death row, on February the 2nd, 1988, she transferred prison. She transferred from Mountain View to Huntsville State Prison, and this is when I'm gonna go and make her last meal, because we came to it. This is it. It's a final countdown. Join me, won't you, for her last meal? It's garden salad with the French dressing on top. Then it's just like whole banana and a whole peach. I hate people like this, Carla. I hate people like you. She's the one and only person that I have covered on this channel to have gone healthy. Where do you think you're going? Who are you dieting for, girlfriend? So I guess I'll take the salad first. I guess this is the main meal. And that's dessert. I hate this bitch. Okay, the dressing does make the difference, not gonna lie. So as I mentioned, she's transferred to this Huntsville prison, and Bush is still to make a decision for a 30-day delay. And then they will bring her back to her old prison, but Bush at 6:30 p.m. decides, no, her last appeal is just gonna fall through. Her gender shouldn't be an issue here, and the execution should just go through. So 2nd of February 1998, just as Bush denied this to her, it was about 6:20 p.m. They immediately led her into the chamber to like strap her against the chair and inject her with the solution, and for her death penalty to go forward. Her last words were more of a paragraph, so let me read those out to you. Yes, sir, I would like to say to all of you, the Thornton family and Jerry Dean's family, that I'm so sorry. I hope God will give you peace with this. Baby, I love you. Ron, give Peggy a hug for me. Everybody has been so good to me. I love all of you very much. I'm going to be face to face with Jesus now. Warden Baggett, thank all of you so much. You have been so good to me. I love all of you very much. I will see you all when I get there. I will wait for you. I don't know why, but I find it eerie with like Eileen Wuornos and this woman as well, when they're like, I will wait for you. I'm like, please, do not refer to what you're gonna do after death. Do not haunt us all. Like, just say goodbye and just go and transfer to the other side, bro. And well, it took her about 8 minutes to die, which is just one of so many problems I have when it comes to death penalty, because it doesn't seem like a painless solution to like ending somebody's life after 15 years. Like 15 years after she has been tried for these crimes. And while that was happening on the inside, a couple of hundreds of capital punishment abolitionists were outside protesting that same day as this was happening. Her ex-husband, the one she married when she was like 16, the Stephen Griffith guy, he said, well, she always did want to be famous. So, I guess that's that. She became famous for all the wrong reasons. Let me finish this salad, because we gotta talk about the stamps. Yeah, the stamps. I'm against everything in this freaking case, but if I'm against one thing in particular apart from her murder, it is this next thing. And that is that Carla's face was printed for 2 different versions to be shown on stamps. Yep, postal stamps. You could have, in a certain period in the 90s, used the face of a murderer to like send your postage to your loved ones. The concept, yeah, does it agree with you? And this was established by the Texas Coalition to abolish the death penalty, and also the Amnesty official office in Copenhagen. And of course, because people ask them like, okay, how about you make this awareness by actually showcasing victims' faces instead of a murderer's face on the freaking stamp? They said this is not like to show any disrespect. It is just a showcase of a protest against a barbarous process, which is the death penalty. But what I love about this is that Deborah Thornton's husband responded, and he said there were like artists involved in this, right? Like people actually trying to portray her and make her look good and like edit out some of her pictures for the stamps. Whereas what they should have portrayed was a murderess with blood on her and with a pickaxe in her arms. And I'm sorry, but I agree. Like, imagine getting a star and be like, oh, who is this pretty lady? She must have broken like a record, gotten a Nobel Peace Prize, like to be on a stamp, and for you to realize, oh no, she actually bludgeoned 2 people to death. What I wanted to finish this video on were the words of Deborah Thornton's husband, Richard Tony Thornton. And he said when witnessing her execution, this is not Karla Tucker's day. This should be remembered as Deborah Thornton's day. And I think that's what we truly forget when we cover these cases, especially of the last meals and death penalty, that if death penalty should exist for any reason, as much as we might agree or disagree with it, it is to honor the victims and not to honor the murderers. All we're interested about, or probably why you're watching this video, is because you're into last meals, into what were their last words, into what crimes they have committed. And that is all good when it comes to entertainment purposes or education purposes, for you to understand the case. But what we all need to understand is that there were victims here, and that we need to be careful when trying to abolish the death penalty, trying to protest for this cause, not to do it in such a way that detriments the victims, that glorifies the murderers. Because I think if this case showcased anything, it is if you are using glorification of a murderer to support your cause, it is just going to detriment that victim's family, because they're going to see it in only one way, and that way is the neglect of a victim for the benefit of a murderer. And that's just not the way forward. Mock the murderers. That's why this channel exists, if for nothing else. Yes, we eat the last meals. Yes, you learn about another story of a person, but you always learn about the victims, and you always learn that murderers just, first of all, have no idea what they're doing, and second, that that's not the way forward. And if Carla explained anything to us, that is that this last meal, yeah, it's great, it's healthy. Did it fill me up? No. Is it the way forward? No. I hate peaches like you, Carla. What are you doing? Peaches in February. Out of season. Dry. Why do I chew on the peach? Why is it not juicy, Carla? Bananas in February? Yeah, cool. Garden salad for a main meal? No. No, Carla. No. You know what? Especially not peaches in February, Carla. Know your seasons, bitch. What are you? Still mentally 5? Probably, to be honest. Those drugs. Don't do drugs, please, yo. Don't mix drugs the way Carla did. You know, keep it at a low-key level. And I'm gonna get lost now and finish this last meal, finish what was left of this yummy, delicious peach that is definitely in season, and I'll get lost and see you next Friday. And you keep making better choices than this, okay? You sort your life out in whichever way possible. First of all, not to kill, and then second of all, to make a better choice for your last meal. Choose your next meal as if it was your last, and appreciate it. Because you're eating at your home, not from this fucking tray. You're not eating peaches in February. What is it, March? Quarantine still going on, still going strong. Is it April? It's March. Well, okay, see you next week.